if I'm being honest, I didn't think I would be making a video starting with these words, but I think I have a new super shoe of the year. Today, we're reviewing the Asics Metaspeed Ray. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're reviewing the Ray, and if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this review, but if you do so, I'd sure appreciate if you come back, watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. Now, quick disclaimers and disclosures are that I actually purchased this shoe with my own money. That being said, I have received shoes for free for the purpose of review from Asics before in the past. Whenever I do receive them, though, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points, I'm not actually obligated to create any specific content, and all thoughts are entirely my own. Now, let's talk quickly about the intended use of this shoe, and it's pretty straightforward. It is a marathon racing shoe. It is really, made to run fast, and so you can use it for any type of racing for the most part, but when a brand designs a super shoe, unless designated or specifically called out otherwise, usually that means it's a marathon specific racing shoe. As such, that's how we're going to be discussing the shoe today. Now, from a price standpoint, the shoe comes in at $300, which is expensive, and it is in the top tier of price ranges for racing shoes, super shoes, but given kind of the context of how this shoe is positioned, this is really like, you have the Metaspeed Tokyo line, which is their, super shoe line, and then you have the Metaspeed Ray, which is kind of this notch above. It's essentially the direct competitor to the Pro Evo 2 from Adidas, which comes in at $500, where it's a super light, super stripped back, but like super low durability shoe that's really only meant to be used to race in like once or twice before the durability kind of blows up on it. But it's made to be like the pinnacle of performance. And so $300 is like a very reasonable price point given where the market is at. It's a lot more accessible and approachable. So I actually really like that Asics did this as opposed to positioning it at that $500 mark, because they totally probably could have, right? Now, from a specs perspective, what we're looking at here is 4.6 ounces or 129 grams. So again, one of, if not the lightest shoes on the market. I believe it's the same weight as the Pro Evo 2, just kind of that super lightweight shoe. And then from a stack height perspective, you're looking at 39.5 in the heel, 34.5 in the forefoot for a 5 millimeter drop. However, this shoe has been out long enough that Run Repeat actually did a cross section and measured independently. And what they found when they actually measured is that the shoe came in at 39.8 in the heel, 30 in the forefoot for a 9.8 millimeter drop. So this is pretty common actually with a lot of running shoes where the brand reported specs are going to be a little bit different from reality. I recently learned, so apologies, I didn't know this beforehand, that Running Warehouse only measures the heels independently and then takes the brand designated drop and subtracts it from that for the forefoot. So runrepeat.com, really good resource if you want to look at the actual cross section and what the drop is when measured in a lab in that sense. And so maybe a little bit higher drop than expected. I will say when running in the shoe, it does feel lower drop because of how soft the midsole is, and we'll discuss that when we get to that section, right? From a fit standpoint, the shoe is low volume and it fits narrow, right? I would say it fits narrow across the board. Lengthwise true to size, and so I would go with your normal size, but expect it to be a little bit difficult to get on. But once you're in there, everything's good. So moving to the upper, you have a matrix upper, right? And matrix is, this really lightweight kind of weave that is very durable actually, and it tends to be pretty strong. So one of the, not necessarily issues, but concerns with these super crazy lightweight shoes is that they are paper thin. Like it is, you can see through the shoe, it's very minimal, and so they breathe like crazy, but you don't get a ton of structure. You do have a heel cup here, but pretty much you can just fold. I mean, you can pack the shoe in a bag and have it just be the midsole, right? Like the upper is so flexible, but you still get really good lockdown in the shoe. Now the tongue on this shoe, I do have beef with. It's pretty just small and flimsy and thin, which is not an issue. I understand they're trying to save weight, but it does bunch up and it's a pain in the butt when you're trying to put the shoe on. I would have loved to see it kind of gusseted or stitched in there maybe on the sides, kind of like the Adios Pro 4 does, where the tongue gets kind of stitched in the side there. But I understand, again, they're trying to save as much weight as possible across the board. I did get a little bit of lace pressure from the laces just because there is virtually no cushion in the upper whatsoever. And so, you know, it was there, but you can get some good lockdown, and you do have an extra eyelet there if you wanted to do the runner's knot as well. So I didn't have any issues with heel slippage or anything like that. And I did feel secure in the shoe. The only place you're going to get some cushion again is there's some light padding there in the heel area. Now, moving to the midsole, this is kind of where the magic of the shoe happens, and it's where like all of the weight of the shoe is just the midsole and the outsole. But this midsole is FF Leap, right? So this is a new compound from Asics, and it is an ATPU foam, and it is one of, maybe not the softest, but one of the softest foams on the market. I think the only one that comes to mind that I feel like is maybe softer is maybe the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2, their Incredi-Run foam. I do think is a little bit squishier, but it's kind of in that same overall vein, right? Now with that, as you can expect, there is some pretty bad stability with this shoe. It was like surprisingly better than I expected it to be, but still you're gonna get, you know, a lot of wobbling. And the platform is not as wide as you would expect. So really, like as you're running, especially at slower paces, I feel like there's a noticeable wobble and wiggle where it's gonna really work the lower limbs or lower leg muscles in your legs and in your feet. So you're really gonna feel it there. Now, the result though of this is that it's a hyper responsive bouncy foam. Like it is maybe the hardest shoe to slow down in of any shoe that I've ever run in. Part of that is going to be because of the rocker geometry. Part of that's just going to be the responsiveness of that FF Leap ATPU foam. It compresses significantly, and then you only have about a 3/4 plate, actually, a carbon fiber plate in the shoe. And so it's not going to be quite as rigid as some other super shoes on the market, which is kind of a nice surprise to where I feel like because of how much the foam compresses, a shorter plate overall, you almost get some sense of ground feel. And so you have this crazy light, crazy responsive shoe with some ground feel, which allows you to get some really fast and good turnover. Now, when cornering or coming around turns, you feel a little bit crazy in the shoe. You almost feel like you're gonna explode out of it. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to get it on the track in particular, but I have run, you know, in circles, just wider overall circles, or I have made some turns, and like it does fine, but it's I think I might be a little bit worried on a track with those sharper corners or sharper turns. So it's just something to keep in mind. But man, the responsiveness and the underfoot feel in this have been phenomenal. Through 30 miles, I have about 33, I think, or something on the shoe. I don't notice any decline in the responsiveness of the foam. Now with the Adios, or the Pro Evo 1 and 2, there is a noticeable breakdown in the foam around, you know, I started to notice it above 50 miles where I felt like the shoe started to give. So we'll see how these hold up. This is a shoe that I am actively considering using, not just for a 5K time trial soon, but also potentially for a marathon, for the Tokyo Marathon in March of next year. So it's one that is definitely on my list that I'm looking at. Overall, my big concern with the shoe is, can my body withstand the toll that it will take to kind of stay stable, like the stabilization needed because the foam is so squishy, because it is a little bit narrow, right? Like, can my lower limbs handle that over 26.2 miles? We'll have to test as we get into marathon training what that feels like, but 30 miles in, it's crazy enough and fun enough that I am heavily considering using this for a full marathon. Now, you will notice that there is a lot of creasing in that midsole foam, right? So again, that's something to watch. You know, is that foam going to break down quick, right? Is this going to have similar durability issues to the Pro Evo line that I'm just not sure yet. Moving to the outsole. Now the outsole actually, it's an Asics grip outsole, and you only really have coverage there in the forefoot area. I saw an interview of an Asics product rep when these first launched or were first announced, and they did say that for the most part, this is really going to be a shoe built for midfoot, if not forefoot strikers. It's not one that they would really recommend heel strikers use. Now, for me, when I fatigue, I do move to the heel. So again, that's something I have to evaluate. But you can see there's just like no outsole coverage in that area. Something also to note is there is a little bit of like a dent in the foam there in the bottom, and that was originally white, by the way, but it kind of almost suctions the ground, at least when walking in the house on kind of the hardwood floors. And so you know, but the grip itself, like, it does actively grip the ground really, really well. There is some really good active squeak, but I feel like you can already start to see the foam is compressing there in kind of that forefoot area. So from an outsole perspective, you're going to get lots of grip, lots of, even if it's wet outside. I did run in the rain in these as well, so that's going to hold up. But again, it's more so the midsole foam, and then obviously if you're not running on concrete or asphalt, like that midsole or the bottom of the midsole or the outsole area is just going to get completely torn up. So now, who's this shoe for? You know, really, I think if you're like me and you're someone who just really, really responds to a very lightweight product, right, then this is going to be probably the best bang for your buck from a pure weight and speed perspective. The Puma R3 is very, very lightweight as well, but it doesn't compare to the Pro Evo 2 and the Metaspeed Ray at that top tier weight perspective, but it's gonna give you a lot more structure, right? So this is gonna be one of those where you've got to probably be really confident in your stride and your lower limb strength if you're going to take this the distance. But I think it's a really, really fun shoe. Probably not for wide-footed individuals. Really, you know, it's still not accessible. It's still $300. It's still a lot of money, but for those who were curious about the Pro Evo 2 but couldn't stomach it at $500, this is a lot more reasonable. And so if you like the Metaspeed line, whether that's the Paris line or the Tokyo line, and you're looking for something to give you like one more notch of speed or reduce a little bit of the weight, then this is probably the shoe that you're going to want to look at. It's really, like, I absolutely love it. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, just some final thoughts on the shoe. Like I said, just the combination of weight as well as that actual feeling of just bounce and propulsion underfoot, right? Without kind of the same rigidity that a lot of carbon plated shoes have really kind of propelled this to the top of my Supershoe rankings. So right now I've got the Metaspeed Ray at number 1. We've got the Puma R3 at number 2, and then you've got the Adios Pro Evo 2 at number 3, kind of tied with the Adios Pro 4, because I kind of have an asterisk with that one being $500, but Adidas Supershoe line kind of being number 3. You know, there's some other contenders in there. I've really enjoyed the Hyperion Elite 5. I thought that was really, really good. Another one that really stood out to me that I actually need to review, the Wave Rebellion Pro Low from Mizuno, right? The more standard geometry midsole Supershoe from Mizuno also is up there for me as kind of that second tier, right? So I think Hyperion Elite 5, Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro Low, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone else as I look around here. But all in all, you know, really, really good Supershoe market for 2025, and we're seeing some previews already of what's to come in 2026. So really, really exciting time to be a running shoe reviewer and fan. But yeah, so there's my review of the Metaspeed Ray. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments what you're curious about and what comparisons I should do with this one. I'm planning on comparing it to the Pro Evo 2, but if there's other shoes that you want to see me compare this to, let me know down below. And yeah, if you watched this far and you haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today. Turn on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. And also, if you'd like to support the channel in any way, please consider using some of the affiliate links that are in the description below. I have a link to Wallaco for their distance half tights, or really any Wallaco gear, but if you use RadDad20, you get 20% off. They're my favorite tights. I just got some new longer ones for the winter as it's going to cool down here in Utah. And then also I work with Fuel Goods, so if you want to use the affiliate link below for Fuel Goods to get any of your running fuel, electrolytes, post-workout drinks, anything along those lines, please consider using that affiliate link as it will give me a kickback, which again, in turn helps this channel grow. So if you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. We're just going to wrap up here with a question as always, which is, what has been your #1 super shoe of 2025? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody.